This is Steve Navoychek, the 501 Coroner, and this is a political opinion piece. I know when folks hear words like data centers, ordinances, discharge motions, ratepayer protection, land use regulation, and quorum court procedure, a lot of eyes start glazing over. I get it. It sounds complicated because it is complicated, and when you pour politics on top of it, it can get even messier. But let me make this as plain as I know how. This is not about being against development. This is not about being against technology. This is not about being against jobs, investment, progress, or Arkansas moving forward. This is about whether major industrial development in Pulaski County is going to happen in the sunlight or in the shade. And development done in the shade is where the trouble starts. A piece of fruit does not get sweet by growing in the dark. It needs sunlight, it needs air, it needs time, it needs tending. Government is the same way. Public business needs public light. Public decisions need public discussion. Public risk needs public accountability. That is the heart of this issue. Judge Wendell Griffen has been pushing the Pulaski County Quorum Court to act on proposed resolutions and ordinances dealing with high-intensity industrial and digital infrastructure. In plain English, that means data centers and the massive impact they may have on electricity, water, roads, emergency services, fire protection, land use, and the wallets of regular people. Some folks have asked me, why doesn't Judge Griffen just relax and wait until the November election? That's a fair question, and my answer is simple. It's because he's the real deal. I knew that from the beginning. Judge Griffen made it clear to me early on that this issue was bigger than a campaign, bigger than a political slogan, bigger than whether he wins or loses an election. He is not waiting until November because the county cannot afford to wait until November. Developers do not wait. Utility planning does not wait. Land use decisions do not wait. Infrastructure commitments do not wait. Once some of these things are locked in, the public may be left holding the bag long after the ribbon-cutting photos are over. That is why this matters now. If Pulaski County had been openly planning for this since the Arkansas legislature passed the Data Centers Act in 2023, we might be having a very different conversation today. But that is not what happened. What we have learned is that discussions involving data center development were happening long before the public was fully brought into the conversation. According to reporting, some discussions go back to at least October of 2024. And yet, where was the countywide regulatory framework? Where was the public process? Where was the clear plan to protect residents, ratepayers, water systems, roads, fire departments, and emergency responders? You know, that brings me to Sherlock Holmes. In Arthur Conan Doyle's story, The Adventure of Silver Blaze, Holmes notices something strange. A watchdog did not bark when a racehorse disappeared. The silence of that dog told Holmes something important. It meant the dog recognized whoever was there. The phrase, the dog that didn't bark, has come to mean the silence that tells you something is wrong. Well, in Pulaski County, the dog did not bark, the watchdogs did not bark, the planning department did not bark, the planning board did not bark, the county attorney did not bark. The people responsible for seeing trouble coming and preparing for it did not bark. And now, after the public has finally started asking questions, those same people are asking everybody to trust the process. That's a hard sell, boys and girls. Shakespeare wrote that something is rotten in the state of Denmark. Well, I'm not saying Pulaski County is Denmark, but I am saying something smells bad when the public is told to relax after the planning has already been going on in the shade. That does not mean every person involved had bad motives. It does not mean every data center is bad. It does not mean every developer is a villain. But it does mean the public has a right to know what is being planned, who is involved, and what has been promised, what the impact will be, and who pays if the rosy promises do not come true. That is not radical. That is basic government. Judge Griffen is now encouraging members of the Pulaski County Quorum Court to use a discharge motion. That is a parliamentary tool that would pull the proposed measures back from planning department review and place them before the full Quorum Court for consideration and action. In plain English, it means this: do not bury it, do not slow walk it, do not send it off into the weeds while developers keep moving. Bring it back into the public room where elected representatives have to debate it, explain themselves, and vote. That is what public service is supposed to look like. And let me say this clearly. Judge Griffen's position, as I understand it, is not anti-development. It is anti-secrecy. It is anti-shade. It is anti-backroom dealing. It is pro-accountability, pro-transparency, pro-ratepayer, pro-neighborhood, and pro-public protection. That is why I respect what he's doing, and that's why I respect that man. He could sit back and wait. He could say, let the election decide it. He could save his energy for campaign signs, slogans, and speeches. But instead, he is pushing now because the issue is happening now. And whether you support Judge Griffen politically or not, you ought to want your county government to answer some basic questions. How much will these products use of our power? Who pays for new infrastructure? What happens to residential electric rates? What happens to water demand? What happens to fire protection? What happens to roads? What happens to nearby neighborhoods? What happens if promises made today do not match reality tomorrow? Those are not anti-business questions. Those are grown-up questions. Those are county government questions. Those are taxpayer questions. Those are questions any responsible quorum court should be willing to ask out loud. And if anybody tells you that asking questions will scare away development, my answer is this. Good development should not be afraid of sunlight. Good development should welcome public trust. Good development should be able to stand in the open and explain itself. If a project only works when the public is kept in the dark, then maybe the problem is not the public. Maybe the problem is the project. So here's where I land. The Pulaski County Quorum Court should bring these measures back, debate them, improve them if they need improving, amend them if they need amending, but do not hide behind process while the clock keeps ticking. The public deserves more than trust us. The public deserves more than we have it handled. The public deserves more than finding out after the fact that decisions affecting power, water, land, taxes, and emergency services were already being shaped behind closed doors. Truth is not negotiable, transparency is not optional, and watchdogs do not get paid to sleep. They get paid to watch. So to the members of the Pulaski County Quorum Court, I would say this: bring these proposals back into the light. Let the people see them. Let the people hear the debate. Let the people know where you stand, because this county does not belong to developers. It does not belong to utilities. It does not belong to chambers of commerce. It does not belong to political insiders. It belongs to the people who live here. And those people deserve sunlight. This has been the 501 Coroner Political Talk, and this is solely my opinion. Y'all be kind to each other, okay?